was not my beginning. Opera was not my beginning. It was just like a multi-genre. It was something that developed. First of all, I was always interested about writing. I just liked to write. That was never my job. I worked as a building engineer for over 30 years. Not connected at all with that. Before that, I had an import-export company in the medical field. The other person would be dead by now. So after that, while I was in Italy and was studying, I started writing poetry, which was not done before, and it was not out of the need of people to read it, but out of the need of expressing feeling of not belonging in Italy and not belonging in the United States at that point of my life. Because I came at 16 and I became Americanized, and now I'm going back to Italy and I'm neither meat nor fish at this point, as they say. So I started writing poetry. My poetry is mostly, 90% of my poetry is personal poetry, is about feelings. I started to have import-export company. I was traveling a lot. I used to do about 100,000 miles a year on flights, and I felt very lonely because in the meanwhile I got married and I had a child and I was on the road. That I created a lot of poetry. A lot of it I used to write it, and the week after I would just toss it out. So it got destroyed. Some of it though started to get published by magazine, and it stayed in there because of that. That's how it got saved. And meanwhile, I also started writing short stories, which I always liked to write short stories. I started writing, and I started getting published with that too. Thank the Lord, otherwise there would be, in the old time, you didn't do it in a computer, as you know. I'm a little older than, and we used to do it, young people, we used to have a typewriter. First you write it by hand, the long way, and then you do it on a typewriter. And if you didn't keep it in a safe place, say goodbye to it. But they got published, and that's how I saved my short story. But I came back to the United States, and a friend of mine who was publishing a magazine, Italian magazine from 1974, was having problems with this major editor in charge. And he asked me to start writing. And then after I wrote for 2 issues, he said, can you take over? And from 1990 until now, I'm still running the magazine. It was paper magazine until 6 years ago because of the upheaval with the digitals, but we're now online. And it's a bilingual magazine, which means that whatever's written in Italian, it's not translated. Whatever is written in English, is not translated. They are all independent concept, independent topics. So that's how it started. So I started writing for the magazine, but also started being the editor, taking care of other people. And I did that for many years. And somebody told me, a friend of mine was a publisher in Florida, told me, what's wrong with you? He said, you never put your poems together. You never put your short stories together. I said, I know. They're not valuable. What do you mean they're not valuable? You wrote them, I liked them. By the way, they're in Italian. I'm talking about Italian writing at this point, not English. So she convinced me to publish the short stories in Italian, which I did just a few years ago. When I say a few years ago, they should feel old. So I did that, and that was, it's like a disease. I want you to know, being published, it opens up a new world. You know Avatar, you watch the movie, right? It's a new world. Now it's like a disease. Because you did the first one, now you gotta do a second one. And that's when I started putting together my poetry. See? Okay. My poems were mostly written in Italian, but some of them were written in English. So how do you do that? How do you publish them? Now this point one can ask, why do you write in 2 languages? Poetry. Why don't you stick to 1 language? Because when you are an immigrant at a certain age, and you study on college on both sides, you are 2 different people. Certain feelings, certain emotions can only be expressed by me in 1 language. And it's hard to, actually, it's very hard for people to capture that, But certain feeling can only be expressed. Like if I have a feeling of despair, pressure and all that, I can only express it in Italian. Not because I can write in English, but it's not natural for me to do it. If it's a commentary on society, I can only do it in English. Maybe because I did a lot of essays in college and all that. Anyway, so that was the basis. And then, as I said, it becomes like a disease, because now you start to realize that I became a publisher myself, because I became a publisher, and I started publishing and I started editing, both Italian and English version. A lot of books. I did quite a few books, and then I realized that it was time to do memoirs. Why? The different genre. Because I was lucky enough to have been exposed, memoirs not on me, thank the Lord, to being exposed to very important people. One of them was my father. He was an artist. My father was born in 1903, which makes me a little old. I lived through all my life being exposed to his art, and when you are into a situation, sometimes you don't realize how important that is until you come out of it. So when my father passed away, and that's when I came back to the United States, by the way, that was one of the reasons I left medical school and came back to the United States. My wife, my kind wife and gentle wife back there, had her mother over here. So it made sense for us having a small kid to come back here. So I started writing a few years ago, about 10 years ago, I started writing the biography of my father and started collecting photographs, which was a hard process. So I just finished about maybe 7, 8 months ago completing the job. Now the book is coming out sometimes, hopefully this year, in 2 different versions, one in Italian, one in English, because a lot of people bought his paintings in Italy, and a lot of people bought them in the United States. My father came to the United States, that's how I got here, and he actually worked for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So it was, he did a lot of exhibits, and it was very, very known. And then, because he came at 65, he didn't come young, so he went back to Italy.
Tiziano, I just want to make sure we get to Jared. Okay.
Yes, so that's how this book was born. This is just the preface to the real book. He only talks about his landscapes, and then the whole biography is coming out after. And I will stop because I'm
so
talking.